What's going on YouTube? This is Luke with Endless Entrepreneurs, just coming to you live on a Friday night, and I'm really pumped up about it. I've got my friend 10K on the Bay, Chris, and Jason from Prof Sales here tonight. This is kind of a throwback to, we used to meet every Monday and talk about everything and anything business related in eBay, and we were talking about some wholesale bulk buying opportunities Chris has been mulling over, and we're in the chat and we're typing away, and I'm like, man, this would be way faster on the Google Hangout. And then I was like, even better, this would be way faster and a lot more fun if we did it live. So this is raw and uncut, and I'll throw it over to these guys to give you some introductions, and then we'll get rolling. So why don't you go first, Jason?
Hey guys, my name is Jason, otherwise known as Prof Sales. I sell on eBay, Amazon, Craigslist, Facebook, all kinds of other nonsense. And I have a channel here on YouTube, Prof Sales. And it's right, we used to all get together on Monday night. So not a Monday night, but this should be a good show. So looking forward to it.
What's up, guys? My name is Chris. I have a YouTube channel called 10Konthebay. I primarily sell on eBay, and I am documenting my journey to 10,000 live listings on eBay. And we used to meet every Monday with Tino, the sole advisor. Shout out to Tino. You guys all know Tino, but he had to have a baby, and so that complicated things. So our group dissolved, but happy to get the old crew back together for some good talk on hopefully some wholesale opportunities today.
Absolutely. And for those of you, I guess I didn't intro, for those of you new who might be following Chris and don't know me, which is probably a lot of you, I sell clothes on eBay primarily. I do it part-time, and I work full-time in the corporate finance world. So format of the show, we're just kind of thinking roughly. Chris is going to present us with a couple opportunities that he's got going on. We are going to grill him a little bit, ask some questions back and forth, kind of dissect them and throw them around, and then we'll leave some time for some Q&A for everyone else to weigh in, because we do value everyone watching your opinion, because we're just trying to figure it out right now as we get opportunities and look to grow. So Chris, why don't you give us a little summary synopsis of what started this conversation, and we'll roll from there.
Okay, sounds good. So I am now full-time, so I have a set amount of used goods going on the eBay, but I now want to start peppering in wholesale, because wholesale is different. It has, it's replenishable. Also, you can take advantage of promoted listings on eBay. And I'm just curious, and since most of eBay is brand new with tags, like over 85% is new, I want to get in on that. And now I am experimenting with 3 different kinds of wholesale or bulk ordering. The first one being AliExpress and Alibaba, ordering directly from China. The second one being local liquidation, and then the third one being closeout shelf pulls, which is sort of the same thing as liquidation, but I'm looking at those, potentially ordering them online versus locally. And I found a couple of spots locally that source different items, but I'm curious, and I want to discuss how to pick which items to start with.
Yeah, I mean, and that was why it excited me. I mean, I've recently done, and we've talked about it a couple of times, had a couple of shows. I recently bought 4 pallets of new without tags pants, and that's what really me and Chris started going back and forth with a little bit earlier tonight, and talking about what the best option to go is. And it's funny because the options that he's looking at aren't even what I was looking at, and it's so cool that you can have so many different avenues to bulk buy and scale and do different things in your business. So, so I guess to start here, Chris, why don't you give us the one that you were leaning towards? Give us kind of price point details, whatever you know about it, and then we're going to throw some questions and challenge you with that. I know Jason's sitting here ready to fire.
I'm definitely leaning more towards AliExpress, because I feel like building a portfolio of products that I can reorder is the most exciting to me. And I don't know which ones are going to sell, so I feel like that's going to take the longest. So somehow I want the habit of continuously looking for new products to throw into the mix. Closeout and liquidation, I feel like, is an advanced form of thrifting, kind of, where you're not going to be able to get it again, just like a one-time deal. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Jason. It's all you first, buddy.
Well, yeah. And this is definitely not my area of expertise, but that doesn't matter, because sometimes that's the best people to ask questions to, people who, because they see it from a different way. So you were talking about AliExpress, and my first question would be, how long Well, I understand your idea of, you can get the same items over and over if you go with AliExpress, right? That makes total sense. You've got these 10 SKUs, you think they're going to be good. But do you have a feel yet for how long it will take for something to show a reasonable rate of sell through over a given period of time, whatever that is? Do you have a feel for that yet?
I'm hoping I can get the item within 1 month of ordering and that it will sell. I'll be able to tell after 30 days. So ideally, I can buy something that's brand new that I can list the day I get it and test it for 30 days. And I want to have a queue of all of the stuff like this landing at my house to look at. And I feel like a lot, and I sort of, this sounds kind of strange, but I sort of want to go after popular lower margin items that people would be less likely to place an order and be willing to take that risk for maybe only 20, 30% margin, but it's popular already. So I'd like it to start selling within the first month of getting it. I don't know how many need to sell, but I don't want it to not. If it doesn't sell the first month I get it, I'm not going to want to deal with it.
Okay, so so listen to that. If you go that route and you buy a product that's lower margin, but people can easily order it from the same source as you, and it's already being sold, do you have any fear that someone will order it in a bigger quantity than you to get a better price break and price cut you? Right, so that would be that's the first fear that comes to my head. Like when I did the bulk buy, the only thing I can reference is my bulk buy experience. I cornered the LL Bean market in the different sizes and colors and styles I have, so I got to kind of set that medium, which doesn't happen very often, if ever, right? When you bulk buy, it was very unique, so it felt less risky. But what you're describing is that you're going to get something that's more commoditized, going to buy it at a threshold you're comfortable with capital-wise. But are you worried? Because you want replenishables. Like I understand exactly what you're trying to do. You want something you can replenish month after month, establish it. But are you worried that someone else is just going to come in, they're going to see the sell-through, and they're just going to order it and triple the quantity of you and undercut you in price where you can't make money? Like, is that Go ahead.
I'm hoping I get a large enough mix of items that I can just rotate in and out. Because I feel like each item you get boosts your whole store's ranking. You have stuff that's completing. So like I'll see stuff on eBay all the time that is ranked higher and is not cheaper. So it makes me, I have a conspiracy theory kind of that eBay makes more money when they sell things for more. So why would they not put the better seller, higher cost item first? At least, people don't have to buy it, but if there's a best match, maybe the best match is somebody who does a great job selling with great pictures versus someone who's a little bit cheaper but sells less of them. So I guess,
okay.
I'm trying to I'm really trying to figure out the help with how do I determine the risk part. Right. Like maybe if I get something that I make 100 times my money, I only need to sell 1 out of 100, but that doesn't seem like it's very common.
My follow-up question to that would be, so do you plan to use promoted listings? Is that the other factor, is that you want to start strategizing with promoted listings because it's multi-quantity and it's, those type of items you can do that with?
Yes, I'd like to have it be yes, definitely. I like paid advertising a lot. I think if you can pay for traffic and there's because I like the math behind if you spend a nickel, can you get a dime back? I don't know. I would love to see if I can try that. At least I want to be an expert in e-commerce, and I feel like there's people who are experts in e-commerce use paid traffic, at least sometimes. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I get your time frame on. I want to go back to that for a second. How long to know if it will sell? You were talking about a 30-day time frame, but like kind of your risk question ties into that. If you buy 100 units and your sell through is 8 per month, let's just say, whatever, or 10 per month to make the math simple, then you realize, well, maybe in 10 months I'm going to run out, so you can start replenishing. But it seems like you'd have to take like it would take a long time to kind of know what that real number was on a lot of items. Is there a way for you to cut down and that risk to know, hey, these particular types of items, like, let's say they tend to sell this amount. I mean, I know Amazon has some pretty powerful tools in that, but I don't know that eBay has the same suite of tools available, or maybe it does. Is there a way that you can minimize your risk just by knowing, or at least coming close to what your sell-through will be?
Well, this is a good thing. So you just mentioned that made me realize where I want to be, kind of. I would like to break even after 1 month, ideally. So 1 month to get it to me, and then a month later, I've now paid for it. And then however long it takes to sell, that's okay. Hopefully within, I don't know what a reasonable time frame is, but I'd like to break even after the first month. And as an example, like I thrifted 2 Ford hats, the camouflage hats that just said Ford on it. And they had a manufacturer sticker on it. And I Googled it, and those hats are available for sale. I sold both those hats on eBay for 17 bucks. The wholesale cost is 3 bucks. So that being said, I need a metric, or at least need to make one. So I order 100 of these hats for 300, for 900 bucks to get to me. I'd like to get my 900 bucks back 30 days after I throw the first hat up. And I think there's a lot of fuzziness here because, first of all, do I know if it's a legitimate licensed Ford product? I don't know, right? I don't want to get in trouble with Vero. I know that a camouflage hat is popular. I see them in the wild. I see people wearing them. But then I also looked, there are generic camouflage hats that have like a duck on it. No, just a generic duck. No copyright infringement. That will sell for a little bit less because they don't hold the brand name of Ford. But then these hats are only 50 cents or $1 on Alibaba because they don't carry the potential licensing costs, so they're cheaper. So I guess, but then I can't use the keyword Ford. So I want to make a metric and then try it.
So here's a different question for you. So are you looking to have this be a small portion of your business and test it? And I think this is more for the viewers, not for me, because I think I know where you're heading with this. But like, so are you looking to test it with a small couple products and still spend 90% of your time on your core business and growing it and cash flow and everything else? Or are you looking to fundamentally shift the portfolio of your business? What is your kind of short-term goal around that?
Okay, this is a perfect question. The amount of used items in my store is going to stay fixed forever. And I don't want to do more fixed or more used items than I've already picked. And my portfolio of new items, so let's say I put $1,000 into wholesale and a month later I get my $1,000 back, I want to put that into a second product. And there's no foreseeable end. I don't have an end yet for that. I just want to keep adding a new product each time the new inventory comes in until I have X amount of SKUs and I can sort of predict my income. Because with a few number of SKUs, I feel like we're just guessing till I have a larger sample size.
Yeah, I was going to say I have one replenishable item. It's sort of a sporting goods product, but I just started listing it in March. And that particular sport doesn't get played a lot in the summer. So I'm not really sure what my, and I have been selling it and but I think it'll probably pick up. But I was just wondering when you were talking about all this is just, is eBay your best platform? Because it seems like an Amazon play in some ways, just because of, the volume you can go through. Amazon, you obviously can go the FBA route if you decide to scale up one or more of these products and they no longer fit in your home. Have you thought about that, or is it just going to be an eBay play?
My favorite type of business concept is private label or owning your own brand, because then you can't get restricted. Amazon scares me a little bit because they can take the right away from you, or they can even compete with you wholesale. If you start getting a good product, they can jump in, order directly from the manufacturer and cut you out. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And then also on the flip side, when you do buy wholesale from China, because the rates are subsidized in China for shipping, they actually sell on Amazon. I'm sorry, on eBay and Amazon as well, the manufacturer. So that is a concern that does not happen with used goods. There's no used goods factory as far as I know.
Gotcha.
So I'm missing a way. This isn't really a question, but it's more of an opinion as we talk about Amazon versus eBay when it comes to stuff like this. I think for what we're discussing or what you're discussing, just in this narrow niche, I would almost prefer eBay because and this is not talking from experience on Amazon, so prefacing that. I'm just talking from a macroeconomics perspective in the platforms. If you go to the Amazon route, it gets duplicated and competed with much faster than eBay because it's a lot more difficult to buy in bulk and move the inventory when you have to warehouse it, which is what eBay is, right? eBay doesn't offer the storage and warehouse solution. That's a barrier to entry that I think people forget about sometimes, is that storage isn't in fact a barrier to entry. And when you're buying in bulk, if you're willing to take on that risk, you have an advantage over your competitors. And drop shippers don't have that advantage because they have to price up to deal with the fact that someone else is handling that for them. So I almost, like when I think about replenishables and things like you're talking about, I almost prefer eBay approach if you can drive the traffic and sell through you want, because you're taking on the risk of that barrier of entry of housing it, right? Of being the one that's taking on that part of the movement and the distribution and the customer service. So when you think about testing it, I would test it eBay first. If you find a real home run winner and want to private label it, you've tested the market. Now you can shift it to Amazon, but I feel like it's a way better route to just test it on eBay and then move that way. And that's just totally like theory based. I haven't tested either of them. But when I think about economics like that's what rings to me. I don't know what you guys think about that.
I think that's accurate because you can test the true market value of an item on eBay. There's enough traffic to get an idea of what a product will sell for. It has different kinds of traffic than Amazon because people are, the Amazon traffic is staggering. But on eBay, I feel like it's good enough to get an idea of sort of the lowest price people will pay. Because generally speaking, it looks like people pay 20 to 30% higher for Amazon and Prime for the same exact item. So Amazon is super attractive to me in the sense that they charge a lot more, and that 2-day Prime is such a value add. So I love the idea of testing a private label idea on eBay. Why not? See if the keywords work immediately without building a listing and sending in an FBA.
Well, I was going to bring up that one of the things we heard at the event in Austin was, and I can put you in contact with him, Chris, if you want. This is more of a comment as well. But a guy named Brandon was talking about how he researched private label products that he wanted to go into. And he did it on Amazon, but he had a way of figuring out what other people in that space were already selling. It was actually pretty ingenious how he did it using Amazon's own system. But that might be something to use to kind of get a feel for what the velocity will be through maybe on a category of items you're talking about. Now, eBay will be a little different, but eBay's tricky to sort of figure all that out because their sales reporting doesn't go back as far, and they just don't have the back end metrics, and Amazon's a little bit further advanced in that. So, but I mean, if you're interested in that, I can talk to you about that offline and what he did. It was so ingenious. And I think I might've told you about it, Luke, but anyway,
it was pretty
I just want to bring that up if you were interested in it, and I can tell you. But there's definitely, I think, just trying to figure out, if you're kind of just playing in the wholesale market, I get that. But like, it's kind of a long-term and capital-intensive play, I think, that you have to commit to if you really want to move, towards that model, because you're going to need some time to figure out sell-through. You're going to need time to figure out what works. You're going to need time to figure out which distributors and which model, and like AliExpress and all these other ones. I mean, they have lots of great products from what I understand, and they have some that are not so great and some not so great experiences. So you really have to commit to it, in some sort of time frame. And I'm sure you've thought about that, but I just want to throw that out there.
I think that Amazon also, to me, feels like a retail store. eBay kind of feels like a flea market. In some sense, because it has so many used goods in there. And I think because I'm still incorporating a percentage of my week to thrifting, that's where I'm going to get my ideas to, if I can sell a used one for X amount, sometimes you can get a new one for the same price as the thrifted amount, and you should be able to sell the new one for more. So that part really is interesting to me. You know, if I just keep thrifting X amount of hours a week, I'm going to run into things that I'm going to not know it's popular until I look it up on my phone.
So another question, and so I'm going to have one more question on the AliExpress one, just kind of this general topic, and then I want to shift and have you describe some of the other opportunities you're talking about.
Okay.
You're kind of trying to decide what's best for you. Actually, it's going to be a two-fold question. So the first is, are you looking at a specific niche or type of item? You don't have to get too specific, but like, is there a general genre that interests you, A, or B, you feel like you're just being drawn to? Or are you looking for just best deal margin play just so you can test the market?
There is a eBay store along the lines, it's called like Novelty Warehouse or something. It's very large. I think they have 300,000 brand new products for sale, and they're not a drop shipper because they ordered something to see if it actually would come from the US, and it was fast. Or I guess it could be drop shipped from the US, but I kind of like gifts. I think that will be my top category. I will be sourcing gifts. So if I'm going to do AliExpress, looking for things just my general feeling, a good gift under $20 is going to be what I try to sell as far as wholesale. What was your second question? Or go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead and answer Luke's second question.
No, you're good. Go ahead, Jason. I'll summarize.
I was just saying, when you say gifts, do you mean like just gifts for people in general, not like a seasonal type of gift, like
right, a non-seasonal gift, like as an example, a tie.
Okay.
Is a gift that you get for under $20, you know, so something like that.
Right. So I'm going to summarize this for people watching because I think there's some really good takeaways here, and then I'll just want you guys to weigh in on the kind of summary. So half question, half summary is, you know, as I talk about this, you know, none of us have done this really. I mean, I've had a 4 pallet bulk buy, which does not even qualify me to even a novice of this area. Like, I dove in and had no idea what I was doing, and I still haven't come out of that knowing what I'm doing yet. So, but when I take a step back and look from just a cash flow entrepreneur growing your business standpoint to anyone who's watching at any stage of your business, this is something, and Jason referenced it, from a capital play. You have to make a choice if you're going to go down that road. And I don't think that choice should ever be, I'm going to rely on the results of this test for my business. It needs to, for me, it's got to be a reinvestment of extra surplus money to try and grow my business, not money I need to rely on. And I'm not full-time, so that's why I kind of want to kick this as a question back to you two. You're full-time resellers. You're relying on the cash flow from your business. If, let's say, both of you were to make this jump to try and do this, how does that impact you? How do you view it, and how do you handle that, incorporate that from like I need to pay my bills, need to do the other things? Because I think that'll relate to a lot of other people who are watching.
I guess I'll answer first on the concept of wholesaling from Alibaba. I like if I get my original money back and I can get a second product and keep the first product and also continue to reorder the first product, for me, that's a perfect world. Versus like, and having a nice portfolio of products to sell is very exciting to me. I feel like I have sort of the same idea with, well, I'll get into that in when we talk about liquidation or closeout. But I just like the concept of that money that I use for a wholesale from Alibaba is money that I'm okay with losing 100% of it. That's why I'm keeping the used part of my business fixed, because that's paying the bills. Now this little extra chunk I'm throwing in the wholesale, I want to grow itself. That's why I'm not selling used goods or stopping that part, because it's the bread and butter. Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I actually pretty much agree with Chris's point of view. I think you research it as much as you can. You talk to people who are in that field, who are going down the road you want to go down, and you can at least pick their brain and get some ideas. And there's a lot of people out there we have contacts to who've done similar things. But at some point, you got to take a leap of faith. And, you know, while it sounds good to say, well, I'm going to take the extra money I have laying around to do that, sometimes if you kind of wait for that extra money, it'll never appear. So you have to take definitely some risks, but it can be a calculated risk. And I think Chris is, he's doing a lot of calculations behind the scenes here and doing his due diligence. I think that's always a smart way. And I would do the exact same thing. Like even coming on this show is due diligence. You know, you're trying to get other opinions and pick your brain and think about things in a different way. I think that's always a smart road to go down. So.
That makes a lot of sense. I appreciate you guys sharing, because I mean, it's one thing for me to sit here on my soapbox and be like, yeah, I reinvest extra money, but I can't take claim that I rely on reselling full time. So I don't really have that right yet to do that. I will say that I love the points you guys made about reinvesting it. Like that's how I viewed my LOB order, is all the money I'm making from that, I'm going to reinvest in another bulk buy, right? I'm not going to pocket that. I'm going to look at its growth. And I love hearing that you guys are looking at it as like, you take the shot because you want to keep leveraging it. You don't want to just siphon it and be done with it. So I think that's pretty cool. So let's shift gears here. So we talked about one. Chris is interested in AliExpress and replenishables possibly from there. But you have a couple other opportunities you were talking about, and we haven't even got to the one that we were talking the most about. So why don't you give kind of the next one and the opportunity and give some context around it and why you're entertaining it.
Sounds good. So I met a local wholesaler of shoes today. They have 3 retail fronts and they sell some wholesale. So they do wholesale or retail. And this is pretty common. I've seen a lot of retailers also do wholesale. And where I originally saw this was New York City in the fashion district. It'll say wholesale orders above the regular retail shop. You can go in there and order X amount of stuff. So I really I went to one today where it seemed to me that it was shoes. Almost every single pair was a $10 profit or more on eBay versus the wholesale pricing. Now, the thing is, $10 is not necessarily a great profit if you spend 40. And that was sort of the high end of the wholesale shoes. The low end of the wholesale shoes was 5. And even the ones at 5 had at least a $10 profit. Some had different margins. Some were selling for 70, 80, 90, but only sold once a week. Some where you could buy for 30 and they're selling for 55, but they sell 20 a week. So I mean, there's so many variables, but literally 20,000 products, all of them were profitable wholesale. So I don't know. So I was a little confused. Ended up buying nothing. But the normal order is 300 to 500 pairs wholesale. So that's not a small amount of money. So I, want to see if I can reduce the risk as much as possible, but then you still have to see. So, and also I want to make the point that I asked the question, why don't you guys only do retail and online? And they said, because simplicity. Wholesaling is simple. There's pretty much no returns. People come and get it. They take it. There's room left to make a little bit of a profit, which means we have repeat large order customers. The repeat 300 to 500 pair customer is amazing. So it's different. We do retail a lot of them. We have 3 storefronts, but we also do the wholesale. So they don't do online, only retail in person and wholesale.
So that was what sparked this conversation earlier when Chris brought that up to me, and we didn't take it much further because I was like, let's just go live and talk about it. And so first of all, let's talk margin. So if you're going to wholesale something, you're going to buy it in bulk and you're going to flip it. What to you is worth it profit-wise? Let's start with that. Let's start with that metric. And I'm curious to hear what Jason has to say. So if you, per piece for the time invested, what is the minimum net profit per item that you're willing to accept?
I don't know. The only thing I can think of is that I want to get my investment back in 30 days because that's been the case for me with used. So I feel like, if they make a smaller margin, but it's going to sell quickly, then that's okay. But I just want to measure it versus time, because another thing that I wanted to point out is there wasn't a single shoe that didn't have a multi-quantity. Not one that there was only one available. So that multiplies your time also.
When you say get your money back within 30 days, do you mean just get back the initial amount you spent, not
Yes.
profit that amount, just you've
No.
grossed that amount?
I'm talking about grossing that amount.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. That's kind of what I thought you meant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I would just tag on to Luke's question there and say, I've talked about this before on the channel. It doesn't really come down to, for me, like the net profit per item. It comes down to the net profit for the amount of time and capital I got to invest to get it, because not all profits equal, how quick you can earn it. And I mean, when you sent that shoe picture, I was like, well, that's a natural. Chris knows the shoe market. I mean, you have a background. I mean, you have a past in that too. But as I listen to you talk about it, it's like, if you really want to have replenishables and things you can, keep going back to and order in bulk every time, like the AliExpress model seemed a little more your speed, or maybe what you were looking for. I guess I would just want to know, hey, these local guys and so on go away. But, how quickly, are you going to be able to continually hit them for the amounts you need? Do they have a long enough track record? Maybe they do. I might have missed that. I was distracted for a moment there. But Karen came in, she distracted me. But, I would want to know that too, because I mean, you're obviously trying to build something for the future. If this works for you, you want to have something you can keep going back to over and over and over. That stability of your supply or suppliers is crucial to your business model. So I guess I would want to know, what does that look like for you?
So before you answer, Chris, hold on, I'm going to tag on. So the reason why I led to that question, I mean, I expected kind of that answer, and I think that a lot of people watching expect that answer. But it gets back to when we talk $10 per profit, per item of profit, or the model and the storage. We talked earlier about barrier of entry, which I think is a very real thing. And you're talking about selling on eBay and wholesaling. And this is what got me so intrigued earlier. And this is what I really want you to dive into and tack on to what Jason said is, so what is worth it to buy in a large enough quantity to make money, but also store it in your house, ship it, package it, and inventory it? That's really what we're getting down to. And at what capital outlay are you comfortable with? Because that's the second piece. To me, it's the time to move it and the amount of capital you're without. Like, what's your threshold? And share as much as you're comfortable with, Chris, because I know like that can be an invasive question.
So I just realized this. The quantity is definitely, I mean, there's a lot of advantages for the local pickup because I can pick which 300 to 500 items I want, which is great. Actually, I have that option with both, but there's an extra month of lead time because I can sell it the day I buy it instead of AliExpress where I have to order it and wait for it to come for an extra month for it to come by boat, which is the cheapest way to get something. So that is an extra month, which time-wise is important. I guess after a few months, it would be the same because there would be a steady flow of items arriving. So, the space versus the time. So I have I have a 2-car garage that I'm going to try to max out, and I could fit 3,500 pairs of shoes if I go the shoe route, which we know from Tino, the sole advisor, who's not here anymore. So 3,500 shoes would be the capacity of that, but the capacity for widgets is in the millions because they're so small. Small gifts, you could fit thousands, way, way, way more items. So that is space constrictions. I do not want a warehouse yet. So.
I guess where I was going with that, just to be more direct, is so let's just say you get 500 pair of shoes. You fill up a corner of your garage because you already have used inventory. You already have thousands of used inventory. You fill up a corner with shoes. You're flipping them for $10 a piece. They're moving fairly fast. Let's assume they're moving twice as fast as your used clothes. I think that's a fair assumption. Is the profit and the time that you're going to spend doing that worth it over the single source SKUs that are 5-10x what you're paying for them? Because I'm imagining you're paying 40 per pair ish and making 10, right?
Yeah.
40 to 50 versus your 4 to occasionally 50, 60, 70, 80 on single SKU stuff. Like, I don't know, and I don't know the answer. Like, I don't know that any of us really do, but you have to start evaluating that threshold of when the shift makes sense. And I don't know what that is. I just think it's a very intriguing conversation. That's why I love this topic.
Okay, this is what I am leaning towards after just hearing that last comment. The closeout and the liquidation stuff that I am finding locally is basically kind of the rejected normal retail stuff. It still doesn't sell and was closed out to somebody or whatever, so it's cheaper. And liquidation or closeout stuff is really easy. I feel like it's less risky because it's already, you know, market relevant, you know, and so that if you price it at the cost, it's going to sell very quickly. Whereas something I order from Alibaba, if it ends up not being popular, I literally may have lost my entire investment. As an example, one of the items I was researching was a Michael Jordan item. This is not shoe related, but the Michael Jordan item wasn't popular because he's not as relevant right now. But the same item with Steph Curry or LeBron James on it was popular, the same item. So like if I made this order on AliExpress, like since Michael Jordan was more popular before, I might have been stuck with it versus like in a local liquidation or closeout, you're probably not going to find Michael Jordan stuff. It's going to be Steph Curry or LeBron stuff that didn't sell. So I now, after talking to you guys, I think the liquidation and closeout is less risky in my situation because it has less lead time. But then it also has a higher, well, shoes have a higher per item cost. So it's kind of a fuzzy.
Yeah, and I think too, it does have a less lead time in some ways, but if you have to go there to do it, you know, that obviously takes up all your time at that moment. And maybe there's enough there to do it for the level you're at right now because you're just entry level and just getting started. But if you wanted to buy, say, you know, 50,000 shoes, you were at that level, you know, you're probably not going to go to just one source, one store, one warehouse and do that necessarily. It's just not, you can't pick through 50,000. You're going to have a way to sort of scale it up. So you might reach that point where the amount you want to get is going to necessitate buying in bulk, unseen, you know, whether it's some local source or here in the United States or overseas, just because you can't physically go there and look through them all. You know, you just run out of time.
I think the thing we haven't really discussed yet either, and I asked you, Chris, which I think makes a major play in this, is so if you go this route and it starts to go well, are you going to add help? Because all of a sudden when you add help, that $10 on the $40 purchase isn't as big of a deal, or it is a bigger deal. I mean, it can go either or, but it's like if you're able to increase your quantity of buy because you have help and you can move it faster, right? Or things like that, because there's still going to be, you're going to buy in bulk and that's great. You still got to list it. Like multi-quantity or not, 500 pair of shoes, you're not getting 500 of the same pair, right? I mean, there's at least within there going to get 20 or 30 pairs probably, right? I would imagine.
This is, I'm gonna slightly change topics. Not same topic, but similar thing. So this is an easier example for me to understand. Since my stuff that I'm looking for on my AliExpress, let's say for example, I want to open an office supply store on eBay. So I have scissors, notebooks, all this generic stuff that people use all the time. Normal good stuff. It'd be good for a gift, crafting stuff or whatever. And I have 1,000 of these SKUs and a small quantity of all of them. When they start to sell down, I order another one from Alibaba. It's like an office store. I can also take advantage of paid traffic to get people to go to this store and look around and buy things. And then I feel like once I have a decent office store that has lots of options for people, then I'm good. I own a company that sells that and it's replenishable. There's no more looking. There's still looking, but less looking once you have an inventory versus the closeout and liquidation still feels like a hustle to me, not a company. But, you know, I don't know. It's I'm trying to use that versus like if I was looking for limited edition bedazzled scissors, you know, one off, or a local liquidation of scissors is great, but then once they sold well, then that's it. I have to go find more.
So you're looking to build a system and a process and a business, right? So I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll let Jason kind of weigh on it. But that's what I hear. I hear you don't want one-offs or one-off purchases. You want a repeatable system that you can build and invest in. Is that correct?
Yes, and liquidation and closeout is a repeatable system. It's just you need to feed the beast certain amount of items, and it just goes through. It's the same. It's similar. You can create a liquidation closeout machine also,
but one you can brand and one you can't. So go ahead, Jason.
True.
Sorry.
That's true. Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say you have to decide if having that local supply and the convenience of that outweighs the complexity and the time constraint of having all those multiple SKUs. Because like Luke said earlier, I mean, you do have to go in and do the separate listings and so on. Yeah, you can do color variations of the same SKU. But that's, I think, where that's where the scale question comes in, where Luke's question about employees becomes really relevant, because, if you can buy 10 SKUs from a big wholesaler and bring them in and be able to have them, very quickly sorted, organized, whatever, that's great. But unless you can keep repeating that with your shoe supplier, for instance, local, all of a sudden you've got 10 SKUs this month, but next month, well, you got these 8 again, but then you got 2 new ones over here. Like, you're always having to go in and kind of reinvent, your SKU selection. And then maybe you get the ones you had, like Luke ran into this with his pants, because he was doing each box at a time. But then but then you go 10 boxes in and you find the same pant again. You're like, man, it would have been nice in a weird way. And so he made a trade-off, like, well, I could go sort them all at the beginning and just list, I got 25 of these and 30 of these, or I can make a whole separate listing, which is the way he went. It's time either way. You just got to decide which one will. The tricky part here is, like, how can you deal with multiple SKUs locally versus just having a few SKUs from, some other supplier? Is that making sense? I'm not sure I explained that very well.
That does make sense. And there's a question in the chat talking about building an email list for a specific bunch of products. And I think that totally makes sense when you stay in the same niche. If I had Chris's office supply store and I'm building an email list of the people who buy office supplies from me, then of course, that's great. I can test different office supplies, and after a while, I have a client base that can buy office supplies from me. That's probably the most business sounding thing versus Chris's liquidation house. Every week, something different. That's more localized than quick flipper type model.
Yeah. And I think this is a good time too, because I think we finally got to the point where we've really clearly defined 2 paths, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I'm hearing is basically you go the branded route with a smaller SKU list where you're branding your company and the brand around those products and just the fact that you're known for them and you're marketing them, or you build an infrastructure that handles as many SKUs as you feel like, right? But the system and the employees and the people in it can churn through large amounts of volume over and over, and that I feel like that's the 2 routes we keep kind of beating around, and it's like you're not sure which one you want to go down, it sounds like, which is totally fine. You want to test them, but we had Dave on the show before, way back when, and he kind of has the one over here where it's like build a system, handle whatever product comes my way, turn it around fast and keep feeding it. And then there's the other more branded niche approach. And so that's what I hear. I don't know if I'm hearing it incorrectly, but does that sound right?
Yeah, there's even also a model of just picking one product, testing it on eBay. If it works, then go on to Amazon, sell one SKU, and doing a good job at that. So, I mean, there's so many different ways to do it. And I just want to make a quick point, guys. When I first started my YouTube journey, people were saying that I was sort of screwing up my market by talking about stuff, but it's been the opposite. Since starting my YouTube channel, there are now so many different things to sell that it's become an issue just developing a process to sell it. There's literally probably millions of different things you can sell. So I just want to point that out real quick. The market's not, it's the same.
I adamantly agree that process is the barrier, not the idea. Execution in the process is always the barrier. So yeah, I totally agree.
And you know, just as another thought, like some people say, oh, I'd love to sell Rolex, you know, but there are literally thousands of authorized dealer of Rolex. Like if you really want, if that's what you wanted, you could become a rep and get a wholesale directly from the manufacturer. So like pretty much any product, any line, there are people who have that relationship. So if you really like a specific topic, you can even just eventually become an authorized dealer from the manufacturer.
You know, that's an interesting question. And you saying that, it's brought up to my mind. Would there be any value to exploring, you know, becoming an authorized dealer of an item you could wholesale on eBay, you and whoever all the other authorized reps were, if there are others, just to kind of limit, you know, that market competition? You could maybe get a better feel for sell-through if there's only 20 sellers of it instead of 500 sellers. I don't know. Have you thought about that, or is that even a route to go?
I love the idea. I mean, being an authorized dealer for 100 SKUs sounds amazing, but that's probably a whole lifetime of work to do that, to get that many relationships lined up. Then you're essentially a retail store. Right. But then again, I mean, those stores exist. They're called like Best Buy or whatever. And then they're the ones also dealing with closeout stuff. And Brian had mentioned in the chat that a closeout is sort of defined as something that was offered to the public and didn't sell. That's why it's being liquidated or closed out to someone else, because the market didn't initially take it. So
also,
yeah, but
also
that doesn't mean it's always bad. I mean, it could just be it was oversaturated at the
True.
moment. It's out of season. They over-ordered.
Regional.
Yeah, regional, exactly.
I think a lot of closeouts I fail because of regionalness. I mean, that's something I've researched a lot of late, just because I mean I am interested in bulk buying, and a lot of closeouts and shelf pulls happen because regionally they failed, right? And they failed in the Northeast, but they're great in the South. Well, when you start marketing it online, it doesn't care where it goes to because it's just going to ship. So that is something. I mean, you have to know, but that's one big cause of it too that seems to be a driver.
Yeah, I think the Internet of Things, where everything is available online everywhere, is going to become a thing. Like Amazon just hired 50,000 employees. eBay's releasing all these crazy new features and tools, and everything will be available everywhere, I think, eventually. So that's it. As all these the internet's still really new. eBay is totally different. I mean, I haven't even started really using the new app. The app's totally different now. They've made a lot of changes on it, even today.
We got 90 watching live. I think that we have tossed some great content and debate here. I've been super intrigued this whole time. I want to leave a little bit of time. We got like 10 minutes left before we hit the hour mark. Are you guys okay with tossing over some Q&A and see what people have to ask? You feel all right about it, Chris? You feel a little better about decisions you're about to make?
No, I love it.
At least have a better idea.
And I love this last comment from Brandon Page saying, keep in mind economy of scale as you grow. There's totally different costs. And I think we've all experienced that. Trying different categories, trying different size business models, there's totally new costs. There's also combined fixed costs that only happen one time. Like when I purchased my shelves, I only need to do that one time. It was like, you know, it's interesting looking at the scale. There's different costs and savings at different levels.
Yeah, for sure.
You guys want to take a question each? You want to start, Luke?
Yeah, let's. If you guys drop them in the comments now. Put question in front of it. Whatever you have, we will answer to the best of our ability. Keep in mind, none of us are experts in this. We're just talking through it and trying to learn. That's why this kind of the beauty of this live format is everyone can weigh in. And I know a lot of you guys have some good knowledge to share. So drop those comments and we'll throw them around. If you guys see one, feel free.
I'm just waiting for somebody to ask me where the lemon backdrop came from.
Someone said it was an orange.
Huh?
Orange. Someone asked if it was an orange.
Is it orange or lemon? It's a lemon. She said it's a lemon.
There's a good point here from Brian. He said many resellers pounce on retail stuff that didn't sell and goes on clearance. So it's possible for us to sell it better than Ross, Marshalls, etc. St. Louis Cardinal stuff in Chicago. Right. And I think kind of you're hinting at more of that regional play, right? That some retail stuff doesn't sell somewhere, but it will somewhere else. Ross and Marshalls does pose a very interesting kind of I don't know if it's problem or opportunity, right? It's almost like a second middleman between the liquidation, shelf pulls, and everything else, because they're kind of like they're like the retail eBay, Amazon, right? They're like the brick and mortar middle guy moving it. And it does, like, I've noticed even with used stuff, right? Like the used market has shifted based on what a Marshalls and Ross's offers new. And so there's almost like a third, it's not really a question in the chat, but I think it's a really good point to talk about, is that you have to also be aware at what they're buying, because they buy at a much bigger scale than most eBayers or Amazon people could buy at.
I love that comment too, because it seems like here, the stuff that is on sale at Ross and Marshalls is definitely other cities' teams. All the teams locally sell for full retail. Even in a store like Ross or Marshalls, they're selling full price local teams.
That's interesting.
And that makes sense because they already have the traffic. Somebody had asked if I'm building a business that I want to sell. I think I want to build a sellable business, but not necessarily sell it, ideally. What do you guys think?
We've talked about this one before. Building a sellable eBay business that doesn't, because it can't revolve around you, the seller. That's the trickiest part, like taking out the hub of the wheel, and the wheel still rolls. Yeah, I mean, but that kind of requires like what you're doing, I think, or something similar, having like wholesale contacts set up, or some sort of product that you're selling, your own brand. Those sorts of things are sellable, but selling a reselling business, a little trickier to do. Luke will have a different opinion though, because I know he wants to do this. So let's hear what he's got to say.
Yeah, I have a pretty, I don't know, I'm pretty firm on this. Like, so building a sellable reselling business, so eBay, Amazon, whatever, I think it revolves around two things. And this is, again, I haven't done it, so this is me hypothesizing it, not stating it for fact. But it revolves around having either property you can sell that is of great value to the business, right? Or having contracts that are worth money. So, and I think, and this is a really poor comparison, I'm going to use it anyways, that people talk about like a shark. Everyone watches Shark Tank. Like, that's just, it's easy to talk in that way, right? A lot of times offers are contingent upon the contract to fulfill X amount of orders, right? And so I look at it the other way, is if I have a warehouse and I have contracts with major either retailers for the return items or whatever for an X amount of period of time, I can ensure the location the business operates to the person I'm selling it to, and I can ensure the supply of goods coming in with the system already set up. Now I have a sellable structure that I can market to someone, right? Where the shell is there, they need to come in as an operator and execute people in those positions moving it. And so that's, I mean, and these guys know, because we've talked about this for a long time. And if I ever get to the point where I scale, I want to go to a warehouse setup, and I want to own my own warehouse, because I think owning the warehouse puts me in a position to sell the business down the road in whatever route I go. So I have to how I feel.
I have to make a quick thing on this. So the two biggest resellers I know. So I used to work in the car business. The guy told me he was in the real estate flipping business, but he sells cars to pay for the real estate, right? And that, he made tens of millions of dollars basically just financing the buildings that he wanted to buy by filling them with cars to sell. And then the other guy that I know, that the biggest reseller I know, sells wine, but he makes the money from the restaurant, from selling the restaurant that sells the wine. So he wanted to sell wine. He got a restaurant to sell the wine. And then when he sells the restaurant, he makes the money. It's so interesting to remember that you can sell the building and all the stuff that goes into it. That's like definitely more sellable than your garage. So that's something to definitely think about. I had forgotten about that till you re-mentioned that.
The distribution is more valuable than the product itself, for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, wasn't that the Ray Kroc quote, the founder of McDonald's? He said he was in the real estate business,
right?
Not the hamburger business. I thought was interesting.
Exactly. I want to give a shout out to Reselling Niche Podcast. He said a $5 super chat. I appreciate that support and the support of us. So we got a lot of nice comments rolling in here that they're appreciating the content. So we appreciate the support. I'm glad we're learning as we go here. And if you haven't checked out their channel and the podcast, definitely check that out and click through and see what kind of content they have flowing over there. I appreciate the support.
Just a thought on that. The person that I'm renting from offered that kind of. They said, "Hey, if your business gets big enough, I could potentially seller finance the house to you, if you want to do that." And the California market is horrible, so like maybe probably not here, but that's an interesting idea.
Of course, they offer to seller finance it to you.
So it's like not this market, anywhere but here.
I don't know. I just think it's a good thing for everyone to think about, right? Like everyone's got different goals and ambitions, and it's really important that like if you just want a part-time hustle and make some extra money, that's great. Like there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to scale, like you also have to start thinking about the scaling implications. And I think that Chris is doing a great job by even being willing to come on here. Like he knows we're going to relentlessly grill him. Like I don't let him off the hook on anything. So, but being able to come in and throw this stuff around and figure out as you go is super, super valuable. So I don't know. I just think it's good for everyone to be aware enough that whatever their goals are, do the research and the upfront work before you pursue them. There's any suggestions on an inventory system for eBay? I'm gonna let you guys go right ahead on this.
My inventory system, we have a separate video, but it's just reusable tags. So basically, I have the bin and the item location, and I put this on my item and I reuse the tags. But I am going to implement one that has a barcode on it next month so that I can scan the item and the location. I don't know how to do that, so it's going to be very messy and ugly. I'll be failing very publicly on YouTube, but I'm excited to try it. So
I got 300 orders and can't fill any of them. Oh, yeah, I've got systems too. You can check out my channel. I'm not going to go into all of them, but the similar system of an area and a bin and a shelf and so on. So just check out over there. Sorry, shameless plug, but it's just too much to go into in the time we got left. Oh, someone said you can't sell your house if it's as a business that was a house. That probably is true. To have to be rezoned.
I did comment on that. I mean, commercial is the way to go. That would be a really tough sell.
Nobody would buy that. No one would buy that.
Well, and I'll give a step further, right? So I'll give an example. I almost bought a business very early on in my young career, like 8-9 years ago, and I at the last minute did not. Not sure if it was a good or bad decision. Who knows? The business is doing really well right now. But at the time when I almost bought it, they didn't own their building. They were renting, and they didn't have a signed lease. And one of the big things stopping me from getting a loan was that they didn't have a signed lease. And so they couldn't guarantee where the brand had previously occupied and operated. And that was a deal stopper from a small business loan perspective. Yeah. So I just think that's one experience I do have and know that is an impact. I don't know how much the laws have changed since then because I haven't pursued it, but having that sellable property that you own and can control where the business has been and successfully been is a huge deal when it comes to selling your business.
I wish Luke was sponsored by Under Armour. Let's see.
He's sponsored by Under Armour.
Brandon Page also made the comment that there's goodwill of the business. That's a value add because you have people going there. That's true. If you have a contract with a supplier that is delivering to this address all the time, and the address changes, it's going to affect the relationship with the wholesaler. But if you go in there and you want to purchase a business that already has a steady supply of products coming in and a steady supply of products moving out, the location's good, there's a little company there, that's something that's easier to buy than your house.
I'll give you an example to pile on that, and this is more of a finance reference, right? So I work in private equity, and basically when companies get bought, right, they don't get bought as much for the infrastructure as they do for the market share they have in the product, right? So a company acquires another company for the market share they currently have. That market share usually is contracts with suppliers and customers and business they're doing. And so when you have contracts, that's one of the most valuable things you can have. So contracts with suppliers, like Chris just referenced, that's huge. Like when you have that locked up and that's guaranteed coming in, like that's a relationship that was built over time. And I would sure that a lot of private label Amazon folks and other people who have really, really good relationships would attest to, and even retail arbitrage for that matter, when they buy in bulk, like those relationships and contracts are huge. Like that's the backbone of their business. That's the quietest an episode's ever been, guys. That last few minutes.
Yeah, right. Distracted. Let's see. So yeah, Smith. This is a shameless plug for something that doesn't even exist yet. A lot of people have been trying to buy my inventory system. It's not even for sale because it's not tested very well. So I'd be happy to email. If you email me or figure out a way to contact me, I'll send you the crude version that I use for free, so you can try and test it and let me know what happens. So
there's two questions I want to take, and then. Okay, yeah, it was one of them. There's two I want to take, and then we're going to wrap up. Mark, I'm going to table yours the last because I like that one. That was one you're going to grab, Jason? Mark Roberts?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You got it.
So I'm going to grab Jones first because I think it's a really important one to end on. It says, isn't it just math once you get to wanting to sell replenishables? You know, whether it's scissors, shoes, whether it yields a return. And I'm just going to answer it now. My take, and I'll let you guys weigh in. I think it's a big no, only because I think math is a big foundation of it, but sell-through is a factor. If I buy 10,000 and I only sell one per month, and over 15 years I might get the money back, great. But the sell-through of the product and whether it's seasonable and whether it could the fad could just die before you sell it is a huge risk in whatever you're buying. So I'll let you guys weigh in. I think we've touched on it a little bit, but
it's all math.
You just leg it all, Matt. Jason, get out of here. He's marketing us Prof Math shirts with the answer. That is a sponsored answer. Sponsored answer.
I think you can affect your sell-through rate with marketing, which is not math. So you know, if you well, I mean, it is math to in a different degree, but you can put makeup on a pig. So you know how much makeup is still math, but I mean you can present it differently and sell through faster.
The problem is that it really is all math, but you don't sometimes know it until you're so far down the road that it's not useful anymore. You really are trying to predict what's going to happen. Rather, you can look back and make a guess, but it's not. That's true. It's not a 100%. So that's how I look at it.
And that's a great point, though, John. I mean, it is true. Math is a big part of it.
Most statistics are made up. So
that's also a statistic, Chris. Thank you.
There's lies, damn lies, and then there's statistics, right? That's what they say.
Let's address Mark's question because I think it's cool, and I'll let someone else answer. But he basically saying, would you be selling your brand like the show on Netflix, Girl Boss? And I think it was half joke, but I think it's like half. Like it's kind of a legitimate question as you build a brand. And maybe relate it, Chris, back to like talking about branding and replenishables, because I think I think that's relevant.
I think it's relevant too. Like Chris's liquidation store and Chris's office supply store also are brands. You know, like if you have great office supplies, people are probably going to follow your store. And then if somebody wants to start over and do Mark's office supply, you know, they're going to start from scratch. So the branding is important. And I think that's more difficult when you're not niche. Yeah.
And if you have 30 or 40 customers who know, hey, we ran out of X, what do we call? And it's like, oh, just call Chris. That's a value. I mean, those type of things resonate and have value to them too. So, I know it wasn't the total point of Mark's question, but I think it was worth adding that there.
And I think the lesser amount of items you have, the stronger the brand, to the point where you're just one product. Like Coca-Cola is just one product. So the brand is amazing.
So Jeffrey just said in the chat that he's a programmer and trying to make an inventory system. So Jeffrey, if you get towards a successful one, let us know. A, because I would love to know what it was.
I know, we'll
B,
use it.
feel free to message us offline because we all are interested in. I mean, I work with large data, but I wouldn't call myself a programmer. But there are definitely not great inventory system solutions out there right now for medium to small sellers. I think there are for big sellers, but not for small sellers. So feel free to share either offline or online if you come up with something good.
And half a year ago, my inventory system was piled on the floor. So this is a huge upgrade. So we're moving on up. And I think
that video is still on your channel.
And then the
all right, good.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, so we could go on tangents for a while. I think we can talk all night pretty much. But I appreciate these guys joining. I appreciate that Chris is willing to be transparent and kind of share his decisions with us and let us grill him. I did miss having our weekly conversation, so it was nice to reunite a little bit. Thank you to everyone who joined me. We're peaking at about 100 people watching all the time. You guys have anything to add as we close here?
Thanks for having us, man. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And maybe we can get a weekly show going again.
It sounds like it's overdue for sure. And Chris promises that he's going to share some progress updates with us on what he decides so he can test it and share and we all can learn with him. So I'm putting that on Chris and holding him to it.
All right.
All right, guys. Have an awesome night. Thanks for joining, guys. And thanks for the support as always. Enjoy your weekend and get out there and hustle and crush it. See you guys.